war between the United States National Intelligence and the Mexican cartels has been going on for far too long. While there are reports that suggest the possibility of the cartels backing down and quitting their trade of fentanyl into the United States, perhaps afraid of their military, they seem to have other plans. This time there are reports of 15 cartel drones weaponized against a United States aircraft carrier. Could this be their undoing? Have they signed their death warrant by attempting an attack on America? Join us as we explore the United States' explosive reaction to the cartel's brazen decision to engage an aircraft carrier. While it isn't particularly an ideal of a well-run sovereign state, Mexico has continuously taken on the mantle of being home to the most unforgiving drug barons, who not only cook fentanyl and other types of substances on their land, but also have enough arms to power a small militia, pushing them even further than just being drug barons and cartel leaders into local terrorists. Although a sovereign state has autonomy of rulership and is ideally free from foreign intervention, especially from the juggernauts in the West, cartel leaders have come close quite a few times to breaking that reality since they decided to make the United States a market for their illicit substances being cooked at drug labs in Mexico. The United States had first seen the fentanyl problem rise in 2013, and the Center for Disease Control, otherwise called the CDC, called it the third wave of the opioid epidemic. In that year, 3,105 people died from overdosing on fentanyl. However, it got worse in 2022 when the United States took into account the consistent deaths from overdose on the super addictive fentanyl ferried from the Mexican border into America, and the numbers were overboard. Imagine a country losing over 72,000 people to an addictive substance from the borders of a sovereign state, and the ideals of sovereignty making it hard to respond with force. But what really is fentanyl and what makes it dangerous? Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is up to 50 times stronger than heroin and about 100 times stronger than morphine. Like other opioids, fentanyl use can lead to dependency and addiction. While there are other countries that produce this illicit substance, most illicit fentanyl is made in labs outside the country and smuggled across the United States-Mexico border. While the United States had consistently tried and failed at stopping these cartels dead in their tracks, owing to the red tape and bureaucratic process that comes with having a military presence in another sovereign state unless it is called Interpol. Fast forward to 2023, one of the United States' top senators, Lindsey Graham, wasn't having any more of it. He believed that the United States had been treating the cartel problem with a bit of levity, hence leaving them to fester like an open wound. So he suggested the introduction of a bill called the Ending the Notorious, Aggressive, and Remorseless Criminal Organizations and Syndicates, or NARCOS Act, which designates the top cartels in Mexico as foreign terrorist organizations. This way, the United States could finally give legitimacy to law enforcement agencies and prosecutors, empowering them with the authority to freeze the assets of these organizations, deny members of the cartels entry into the United States, and even seek out tougher punishments against those who provide any kind of material support to the terrorist organization. However, despite the continuous criticism from the United States, the Mexican government stands on its sovereignty and claims that the cartels are not in control of their country, as the United States has led everyone to believe. Despite what the president of Mexico says, drug cartels are in control of large parts of Mexico, said Graham. He confirms that they are making billions of dollars sending fentanyl and illicit substances into the United States, where it is killing citizens by the thousands. Designating these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations will be a game changer. More importantly, Senator Graham believed that they weren't working alone, and he explicitly mentioned the Chinese as their ally, who supplied them with the necessary ingredients to cook up the poison that had infested the United States, and his bill was also coming for them. However, his bill was rejected. While the cartels have been known to simply cook these illicit substances and find ways to peddle them across the United States-Mexico border, there was something else about them that had suddenly started to stand out like a sore thumb. Suddenly, they had improved from simple substance peddling and expanded their crime portfolio into other types of crimes, including smuggling operations, which were mostly human and human parts, and other contraband movements like guns, military-grade explosives, and so much more. This sudden increase in the cartel's crime syndicate led them to recruit enough ex-military and all types of professionals, enough to help wage and win small wars while armed to the teeth. For some context, news of suspected cartel criminals who belong to one of Mexico's most notorious cartels, the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, often called CJNG, were seen attacking the police in the western state of Michoacán in Mexico. The Mexican police force had never had to face the cartels with a drone before, and did not even know that the cartels now had drones rigged with bombs. Further reports explored the cartel's newfound confidence since they now had access to RPGs, nuclear weapons, and weaponized drones. Hence, they tried to assassinate Mexico City's police chief, Omar Garcia Harfuch. While the cartels fought an open rebellion against the Mexican national security system, they had been craftier when dealing with the titans of the West. However, having upgraded their crime syndicate beyond substance peddling into other illegal ventures, while arming themselves with enough to fight a small war and hiring mercenaries, they took a bolder step. Something more daring. Reports suggest that they chose to attack a United States aircraft carrier. But why the carrier? What makes the carrier that much of a threat? And why did it need to be taken out so badly by the cartel? Aircraft carriers are warships that serve as seagoing air bases, equipped with a full-length flight deck and hangar facilities for supporting, arming, deploying, and in some cases, recovering carrier-based aircraft. As of June 2025, there are only 50 active aircraft carriers in the entire world, and they are operated by 15 naval forces. The United States has the largest of these carriers, with a whopping 11 catapult-assisted takeoff but arrested recovery, or CATABAR, fleet carriers, each housing approximately 80 manned and unmanned carrier-based fighter jets. It is described as the perfect technology, especially for the purpose it serves, ferrying a whole airbase on its back to strategic points, good enough to hatch a plan and be ready to move out at any time. The United States active aircraft carriers are divided into two classes, including the Nimitz class, which carries the FA-18C Hornet, the FA-18EF Super Hornet, the F-35C Lightning II, the EA-18G Growler, the C-2 Greyhound, and the E-2CD Hawkeye, plus the Gerald R. Ford class, which also carries a large number of fighter jets. While all of the aircraft carriers, especially the Nimitz class, have often been referred to as the pride of the American Navy, one of them seems to stand out the most, the USS Harry S. Truman. But why is it the standout aircraft carrier? What makes it so special? The USS Harry S. Truman was designed as the 8th Nimitz-class aircraft carrier of the United States Navy and was named after the 33rd President of the United States, Harry S. Truman. The aircraft carrier was launched on September 7, 1996 by Newport News Shipbuilding, Newport News, Virginia, and commissioned on July 25, 1998, with Captain Thomas Otterbein in command. The USS Harry Truman has often been used as a flagship for one of the biggest carrier operations in the early 2000s, specifically the Carrier Strike Group 10, a United States Navy carrier strike group. As of August 2004, Carrier Strike Group 10 consisted of USS George Harry Truman, CVN-75, the strike group's flagship with Carrier Air Wing 7 embarked on board, as well as the Ticonderoga-class cruiser Lady Gulf and 4 ships of Destroyer Squadron 26. The warship has often been regarded as the crown jewel of the United States military force, not just owing to its sheer size and how much it intimidates opponents, but also for its strengths in war and how many operations it has been in and conquered for the United States. The USS Harry S. Truman, also called the HST by the United States Navy, is 1,092 feet long, almost the size of downtown Seattle's entire waterfront stretch, and 257 feet wide, while standing at a massive 244 feet. The aircraft carrier, alongside accommodating a lot of crew members, is also able to carry just about 90 aircraft and has a flight deck of 45 acres in size, with 4 elevators that are 3,880 square feet each to move around between the 24-story flight deck and the hangar bay. The warship also uses 2 Mark II stockless anchors, a streamlined derivation of the traditional Admiralty anchor used aboard large ships. Patented in England in 1821, it eliminated the stock of the Admiralty type, making it both easier to handle and stow. These anchors came from the USS Forrestal and weighed 30 tons each, with each link of the anchor chain weighing over 160 kilograms. On top of that, she is a well-protected sea monster, equipped with three 20mm Phalanx CIWS mounts and two Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missile launchers. However, one of its greatest capacities is its propulsion system using two Westinghouse A4W nuclear reactors. It's almost like having a tiny sun inside it. Ergo, it is nearly no surprise that the warship could travel at an incredible speed for over 3 million miles before it ever needed a refuel. More importantly, the warship has 4 giant propellers under the body of water that help push it forward. Each of these propellers weighs 66,000 pounds, nearly the size of 6 full-grown Asian elephants. These 5-bladed propellers are built to drive the warship at speeds over 30 knots. The warship has been a source of constant pain and a nightmare to the United States opposition, especially terrorists in Yemen, the Houthis, Israel, and even ISIS in Somalia. However, its latest contribution to America's war against the insurgents in Somalia came at a cost and claimed some lives. The carrier pulled into Naval Station Norfolk on Sunday, June 1st, with family and other sailors waiting to meet them. Videos and photos shared by the Navy and local media showed crew members embracing loved ones. A large combat action ribbon banner was set up on the ship's superstructure. It was a welcome homecoming for a carrier group that went on an extended 251-day-long deployment. The USS Truman has been deployed on several missions, particularly to fight insurgents and actually take the fight to them. For some context, when the Truman Carrier Strike Group arrived in the Middle East in December 2024, the United States Navy was more than a year into an ongoing fight with Houthi forces. The Truman was the latest in several aircraft carriers to be sent to waters around the Middle East since October 22, both as a wider deterrent and to deal with the threats from Yemen to shipping vessels. During its deployment, the crew of the USS Harry S. Truman and the aviators of Carrier Air Wing 1 launched 11,000 sorties, flew 25,000 flight hours, and executed 22 underway replenishments, as confirmed by Admiral Darrell CARTEL, commander of United States Fleet Forces Command. Although the deployment was successful, it was also marred by some serious mishaps, including the loss of 3 of the warship's fighter jets. She lost the FA-18 fighter jets while also suffering a collision with a merchant ship that forced her into a change of command. Despite that, the Carrier Strike Force still remained at the forefront of the Navy's actions in the Middle East, giving them hell, like the crest on the battle flag says. Despite the USS Truman's intense battle at the Red Sea, it came back still standing and raring to go again when needed. Such is the force of the Sea Beast at its very best. As expected, news of their fighting and conquering Yemeni insurgents, ISIS, and the Houthis, which are all well-armed terrorist groups, traveled far and wide, but the Mexican cartels have had it in for the United States for a long time, and they believe that they could succeed where real terrorist organizations like ISIS and the Houthis failed, sinking the USS Truman, so they plotted an attack with drones. Drones were never really a part of the Mexican cartel inventory. They had bombs, local Molotov cocktails, military-grade C4, assault rifles, including AK-47s, semi-automatic guns like the Uzi, and even rifles. However, aerial power had never been a real focal point of their strength. However, they have recently found their way into real aerial threats, leveraging the use of drones for many reasons, such as smuggling items like narcotics, weapons, and money across the United States-Mexico border. Unmanned aircraft systems, otherwise called UAS, have been used extensively by cartels to perform intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions, otherwise called ISR, a privilege that was once limited to the military. However, they have found ways to get their hands on these drones and use them for closely monitoring the location and concentration of the United States forces and their federal agents, and to scout for the safety of their roads, seeing how feasible it is to ferry illegal migrants through the deserts between the United States and Mexico and make it into the United States. Although the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions were the focus of their newly acquired power, recent intelligence reports in the United States forebode a shift in the cartel's tactics, with threats of weaponizing their drones to target federal law enforcement, engaging them in a battle, and disrupting the border security to give them an advantage in moving not just the narcotics, but also sending a message to the United States about their newly acquired aerial threats. Like it is commonly said, for good or for ill, air mastery is today the supreme expression of military power, and the cartels showed it off. Although the drones are not particularly expensive, aerial threats like one would consider a fighter jet. For example, unmanned drones cost less than $2,000 and can be bought off the internet and retrofitted with a payload of the user's choice, which could be a camera or maybe an explosive, or anything strong enough to cause extreme damage and destruction. While the United States could respond with force, especially since they have a superior military, they have reportedly been opting for a more cautious approach, including a combat-tested counter-drone technology that provides real-time tracking, identification, and mitigation. However, recent reports are suggesting that the United States might have decided to throw caution to the wind and go for the jugular, especially since the unconfirmed reports of the cartels sending 15 drones to attack the United States USS Harry Truman, the famous crown jewel of the United States Naval Fleet. Although the drones reportedly had removed tracking systems and were in the air without a remote ID, the spreading intelligence is that it was possibly a coordinated attack from the Sinaloa cartel as retaliation for the extradition of the cartel leader's affiliate in 2023. However, it all dates back even further to 2019, when Ovidio Guzman was arrested in Mexico, but he was returned because the Sinaloan cartel had too much grip on a chunk of firepower in the country. For some context, an officer believed to have been involved in the arrest of Ovidio Guzman Lopez was riddled with 150 rounds in a matter of seconds, with a closed-circuit television revealing a group of armed men with connections to the Sinaloa cartel committing this heinous crime. Guzman Lopez was apprehended by 30 members of the National Guard, militarized police and army in a raid on his compound in October 2019. However, officers were forced to release him after members of his father's notorious Sinaloa cartel swarmed the area, burning cars, destroying roads, ruining architecture, while armed to the teeth with military-grade weapons and mercenaries who are mostly ex-military with training to fire at them. The house where Guzman Lopez was taken was surrounded, while fighters ran through the surrounding city firing what appeared to be .50 caliber sniper rifles and machine guns while battling police and soldiers in broad daylight, and more importantly, they were winning. Videos were posted on social media showing gunmen in ski masks in battle formation, taking on Mexican forces, riding in the backs of trucks, and firing mounted machine guns at vehicles and gas stations. The Mexican authority bowed out in shame and gave Guzman Ovidio back to the cartel, causing an international embarrassment. However, in 2023, they went back in and targeted Guzman Ovidio again. This time, they had had 4 years to prepare and were ready to extradite him immediately when he was captured to the United States. They made up for the 2019 embarrassment and extradited the criminal to the United States. The furious Sinaloan cartel retaliated with an all-out war and persistent carnage on Mexican soil, but nothing came of it, as their war is not with the United States. With their motives established, reports that they might have been the perpetrators who attacked the United States warship with unmarked drones are not so far-fetched anymore. The Trump administration is now reportedly weighing up fighting fire, with the possibility of launching drone attacks on the Mexican cartels in Mexico, even though they have no jurisdiction. The Sinaloan cartel might have finally picked the wrong fight and the wrong country. Whether the United States approves a ruthless retaliation, flexing their military might and aerial dominance, or let the Mexican government handle it, only time will tell. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.